Olumide laid on his bed to sleep when heavy rain began to fall. He sat by his window as he watched the droplets of the rain fall to the ground. With each drop of the rain, Olumide felt a strong sensation in his spirit that he had never felt before. The rains were speaking to him, warning him of an incoming disaster, and Olumide jumped up from his window and alerted his mother of the danger ahead. Once upon a time, there lived a boy named Olumide who was born with huge ears. He lived with his mother and wondered why his ears were bigger than that of everyone else. Despite having huge ears, Olumide could not hear because he was deaf. He lived life through his eyes and other senses, which were now heightened due to his loss of hearing. Whenever Olumide walked the streets of the village, the people stared in amazement because they had never seen anyone with such gigantic ears before. His sight was so terrifying to many, who avoided him like a plague because they believed he was cursed. Olumide lived a very lonely life as he had no friends in the village. He would play with his favorite ball all alone and wished he was like the normal boys in the village. One day, as Olumide played with his favorite ball, it rolled away and fell at the feet of some children playing in the distance. When Olumide approached them to retrieve the ball, the children picked up the ball and began to laugh at him, calling him the elephant ear boy. They mimicked his inability to hear by speaking with exaggerated mouth movements. The young boys refused to give back the ball, tossing it over his head, laughing each time he reached for it and missed. Olumide felt a pang of rejection, sharper than ever before. He ran back home sad as he wept bitterly for hours as the boys not only took his ball but also his sense of belonging. Olumide, knowing how sad this would make his mother, kept it away from her as he could not stand to see her sad. A few days later, Olumide and his mother went to the market to buy some food items. As they walked past the market stalls, the people mocked them and gossiped about his ears. A certain woman named Mama Ojo even went as far as refusing to sell anything to them, saying that she never wanted to have anything to do with a cursed family. Mama Ojo said so many horrible things to Olumide and his mother, and Olumide noticed the hurt in his mother's eyes as she led him away from the market. The image of this stuck in his mind as he began to blame himself for all that they were going through. Days turned into weeks, and Olumide kept to himself more. His only solace was his mother and the creatures of the forest, who did not judge him for his huge ears. The animals became his silent friends, and the birds, though they sang songs he could not hear, seemed to chirp in a rhythm that comforted his soul. One afternoon, Olumide sat by the river bank, throwing stones across the water. The village healer, an old woman known for her wisdom, happened to pass by. She watched Olumide and saw not a cursed but a unique gift. She sat beside him and through sign language explained that his ears were a sign of a special connection to the world. She told him of a legend where beings with large ears were said to be guardians of the earth, their presence a bridge between nature and humans. The old woman, using sign language, told Olumide never to look down on himself, but rather he should embrace his uniqueness because one day the people will gather before him in respect. Olumide looked at the old woman in confusion as he wondered how the people who have so despised him would turn around to respect him. He returned home that evening and could not take his mind off what the old woman had said to him. A few hours later, Olumide laid on his bed to sleep when heavy rain began to fall. He sat by his window as he watched the droplets of the rain fall to the ground. With each drop of the rain, Olumide felt a strong sensation in his spirit that he had never felt before. The rains were speaking to him, warning him of an incoming disaster, and Olumide jumped up from his window and alerted his mother of the danger ahead. Olumide and his mother communicated for minutes as he explained all that the rains had communicated to him. Olumide's mother, knowing how special her son was, believed all that he said to her. Once the rain subsided, Olumide's mother stood in the middle of the village with her son Olumide as she screamed at the top of her voice, warning the villagers of the dangers looming ahead. She warned them of the sun, saying that the villagers should do everything possible to avoid the sunlight because not doing so would endanger their lives greatly. She advised the villagers to only leave their huts at night, and the people laughed at her, asking what she was talking about, and Olumide's mother informed them of her son's encounter with the rain a few hours ago. When the people heard this, they let out a loud laugh, mocking Olumide's huge ears, which they believed were big for nothing and incapable of even hearing his own voice talk more of a message from the rains. However, a few of the villagers who were a bit skeptical about what she was saying decided to pay a visit to the mouthpiece of the gods to confirm all that Olumide's mother had said. The mouthpiece of the gods, on hearing this, told the people that Olumide and his mother were lying, as nothing of such was ever going to happen. Filled with rage, the people chased Olumide and his mother away, causing them to flee to their home, where they locked themselves in and never came out. By sunrise, some villagers, not caring about Olumide's mother's warning, went out into the sunlight. They carried on with their daily activities under the sun and noticed that nothing happened to them. After a few hours, loud screams were heard, and the villagers who adhered to Olumide's mother's warning and remained in their huts panicked as they wondered what was happening outside. After a few minutes, everywhere went silent, and the villagers in their huts wondered what could have happened. When it was nightfall, Olumide, his mother, and the few villagers who remained in their huts when the sun was out came out to check what had happened and realized that the villagers had all turned into frogs. The entire village was now crawling with frogs, and the villagers who survived the curse were grateful to Olumide and his mother for their warning. They walked through the streets of the village, which was now filled with the croaking of frogs. The villagers watched as their fellow villagers hopped from one place to the other and wondered how the curse could be reversed. Olumide and his mother, unsure of what to do, advised the other villagers to avoid the sunlight until they are able to figure out what was happening. The people turned their nights into day as they traded and did all their businesses at night and slept during the day. One morning, the people were awoken by loud screams of a woman whose husband and son had been living as frogs for days. The woman, whose name was Remy, blamed herself for what had happened to her husband and son, who she forced to leave their hut on the day that they turned into frogs. Remy could not stop blaming herself for what she had done and decided to walk into the sunlight to join her husband and son. Immediately she stepped out of her hut, Remy transformed into a heap of sand, and the people marveled as they wondered why she turned into sand and not frogs like the other villagers. Later that night, Olumide approached the heap of sand and wondered what it could mean. Some villagers turned into frogs and one, into sand, and this made no sense to him. Olumide placed his hands on the sand and felt the vibration of the earth, which spoke to his subconscious. Without wasting any time, Olumide told his mother to call for a meeting of the villagers to tell them to gather the frogs together, and the villagers moved through the village, gathering all the frogs that were littered on the street. Once they were done gathering the frogs, they put them in one large basket, which was placed next to the heap of sand. The next morning, as everyone remained indoors, a certain woman who lived in a very small hut with her stepdaughter Aduke decided to chase Aduke away from her hut. What had happened was that Aduke mistakenly broke her stepmother's favorite clay pot while she was trying to prepare some food for them to eat. Her stepmother pushed her out of the hut and hurriedly ran to the window to catch a glimpse of what would happen to Aduke, who now stood in front of their hut terrified. For a few minutes, her stepmother noticed that nothing had happened to Aduke, so she decided to also come out of her hut when she transformed into a big goat. The people watched in astonishment from their windows as they wondered how this was possible. When night came, the people realized that Aduke was still in her human form. Olumide, astonished as to why the sun had no effect on Aduke, reached forth for her hands and noticed that her hands glowed to his very touch. In that moment, Olumide not only heard the earth's vibration but the whispers of the wind, which directed him on what to do. Olumide was shocked to realize that he was not alone, as Aduke also had great powers. Without wasting any time, Olumide told his mother to inform the villagers to return to their huts, and everyone obeyed as they feared the consequences of their disobedience. Olumide and Aduke remained outside alone as the people watched eagerly through their windows. They all watched as Aduke placed her hands on Olumide's ears, and the entire place lit up so brightly. All the people began to transform back to their human form, and by the time everyone had fully transformed, Olumide fell to the ground unconscious, and the people wondered if he was dead or alive. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should always treat people with kindness because we never know what they are going through. Because someone is different from you does not make them less of a human. Always respect people's differences and treat them with dignity, as you never know what the future holds. Also, do not dig a pit for others because you might just fall into it to your own destruction. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.